100 days until the first Sunday of the season. But who's counting till September 7th? Patriots are at OTAs this week. Mike Vrabel era begins in Foxborough with second-year quarterback Drake May. May is learning a new system under Josh McDaniels after having Alex Van Pelt his rookie year. Now, 2024's 4-13 record is tied for the fourth worst in franchise history. New Englanders have endured back-to-back 13-loss seasons and are ready to compete once again in the AFC East that's been dominated by the Bills. Patriots have one of the easiest schedules here in 25, trailing only the Saints and 49ers in opponents' combined win percentage from last season. And New England's win total is set at most sports books at 7.5.
So let's talk about the Pats with a fan base that was living life large for a very long time. And they've been in a little despair recently, but welcome to the rest of the league. It's pretty much how it goes. Let's see if they can get back on track. Tyler Sullivan, Danny Kanell. Tyler, I'll start with you. Easy question. Are we overhyping the Patriots?
I don't think we are. Again, there's some questions of how this whole thing is going to mesh together with Drake May going into year 2. He has a new head coach. He has a new offensive coordinator. But this team spent big in the offseason, bringing in Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, really bolstering that defense. Carlton Davis in the secondary to go opposite of Christian Gonzalez. You add on offense, bringing in Stefon Diggs. So in theory, this team should be better coached. And as you referenced, their schedule's easier. So all of that tells me that this team should be a lot better than we saw a year ago. How much better? We'll have to wait and see. But I think that the floor of this team is much, much higher than a top 5 team that was picking at the NFL draft a year ago.
Yeah, Tyler, I think there's no question this team is going to be better. It's just what Amanda was saying, are they overhyped? And I think it depends on how bullish you are. And I know we're going to have that conversation, how many wins we think they get this year. But the excitement and the optimism around this organization is completely understandable. They bring back Mike Vrabel, back into coaching. This is the hottest name that was on the market. You pair that with Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator. It looks like you got 2 of the best minds in the game to kind of head up an organization which has been down in the doldrums. Drake May, a little bit bumpy. That's what you expect, though, from a rookie season. But you saw glimpses. You saw signs of potential. And you mentioned all the free agent spending that they did out there during the offseason, having a pretty strong draft. I totally get why the optimism is there. And I think people should be excited. And I think they are absolutely better than they were last season as just 4 wins. It's just a question of how much better, like you said.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? They checked all the boxes. They have the franchise quarterback that they want. They have all the schedule that they want. They spent the cap money that they had, most of it, right? So Tyler lives out that way, and we're going to get to Tyler's in terms of what we're hearing from OTA so far. But, Danny, I'm going to come to you first because the talk about Drake May, early returns, and extremely early is what we're sort of laying out here, though. Mechanics, scheme, things like that. How difficult is it for a quarterback in year 2 to have these changes going into what we think is a big year?
It's a lot. I think this is such a detriment, and it really does make a young quarterback's development that much more challenging when you have to go through multiple coordinators. And it's something he had to deal with at North Carolina as well. But already when you're learning a new system, just as you probably started getting comfortable in the last system, it really does make it challenging. I know the comparison has been made before about learning a new language, but feel like you're traveling the country and you go to live in Colombia and you speak Spanish and you're feeling pretty good, and then already says, all right, you're going to have to move to Brazil and you're going to have to speak Portuguese and you kind of have to start all over from scratch. It can be incredibly frustrating. So I'm sure that's some of the learning pains that Drake May is going through now. I know some of the early OTAs have been a little bumpy with some interceptions. I don't know what this hitch thing is all about. It's probably overblown, because if there's one thing I do know in the 15 years I've been covering NFL off seasons, is this is overreaction season, both to the highs and the lows. Like, we see a touchdown pass, oh, let's put him in the Hall of Fame. We see 4 interceptions at a practice, oh, he's going to be a bust. Calm down. This is the time to make some of those mistakes that Drake May is making. The hitch, we'll see if it becomes a problem. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think he ever had any mechanical issues when he was at North Carolina or last season. We'll see how it plays out. I think they'll be just fine, but I think some of the overreaction right now are just that, because it's not even June and we're overreacting to some interceptions during camp.
Sully, what have you seen? What have you heard from being out there so far?
Yeah, I would echo, Danny, what you're saying. I don't know how much of an impact this whole hitch thing is going to have on Drake May come September. I think that it's something to talk about in May. But overall, from what we've seen, and I've been to both OTAs open to the media this offseason so far, and, you know, we're a little bit further away. We're on a hill. We're watching them play on a practice field a little bit further away, so it's hard to dissect the hitches, whether it's there or not there for Drake May. But overall, what I see is a quarterback that's still learning. It's everything that Danny was talking about. He is now learning a new language. He is learning a new offense that has historically, the Josh McDaniels-led offense, a little bit more tricky than some of your traditional offenses in the NFL. A lot of wide receivers have had issues learning this offense in years past, so it's not for the faint of heart. And so what I see from Drake May, specifically going back to that 4-interception OTA, is a quarterback that's still learning. Kind of things are a little bit fast for him right now, especially when you're going up against the defense that we all assume is going to be pretty dang good. 2 of those interceptions that he threw in that 4-interception day was to Christian Gonzalez, who is an all-pro cornerback. So it's, you know, you don't want to see those interceptions, but when it's coming against arguably one of the best in the NFL, you can kind of go, okay, you know, it's the springtime, it's summertime. There's possibility there that it's just one of those players that it's very good. So for me, with Drake May, it's a little bit wait and see. I think he's still learning. We kind of went through this last year when he was with Alex Van Pelt, learning that offense. The hitch was a storyline then, proved to be an overall non-issue throughout the season. I kind of feel the same way here.
Tyler, what about Stefon Diggs coming off that ACL injury? He's still rehabbing that. Do you have any update on where he is, and maybe do we need to make any more of the Patriots, I should say, changes to that receiving core?
Yeah, well, certainly the off-the-field things are not great, and Mike Vrabel even said to begin his press conference, asked 6 straight questions about Stefon Diggs in that viral video. One of the answers was you want to make great decisions on and off the field. He was also asked about his prognosis and how he's performing when he's been with the team. We haven't seen him at OTAs. Again, there's only been 2 that's been open to the media. If you look at some of their online activity, the New England Patriots, we can deduce that he was there for at least one of those practices. I believe it was on May 22nd. So he has been in the building, and Mike Vrabel says that he's progressing well, and when he's here, we're going to get him caught up to speed. So not a lot there, but when we're talking about Stefon Diggs, I think a lot of it was made of, you know, the off-the-field things. But overall, as you referenced, this is a wide receiver coming off a torn ACL in his early 30s. There's a lot put on him right now. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation put on Stefon Diggs. He has been kind of the crown jewel of this offseason. He's not the highest paid free agent acquisition, but he's certainly the most known, and he is the one that a lot of fans are looking at and saying, hey, we haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since 2019 in Julian Edelman. We have been starved at this position. We have a young quarterback. We feel like we have the right coaching staff. We need that number 1 piece. A lot of people expect that to be Stefon Diggs. We'll have to wait and see if that comes to fruition.
Tyler, this is my biggest concern of the Patriots is what does Stefon Diggs bring to the team? All of it, both on the field, I think it's a question, coming off an injury, off the field, and in the locker room, most importantly. And I think you mentioned the Patriots' excitement, enthusiasm, and expectations. What the Patriots would love to see is to see the impact that Stefon Diggs had on Josh Allen when he went to the Bills, where all of a sudden you saw Josh Allen early in his career kind of struggling. Then all of a sudden his numbers jumped massively. Well, that was a much younger Stefon Diggs in his prime. Now we're talking about, you know, many years later, another organization later, a massive injury later, and all of a sudden we've got off-the-field issues too, and he couldn't keep the locker room happy and Josh Allen happy when he was in Buffalo with the front office. This concerns me, and now that you have yet another sort of off-field distraction, it concerns me because a young quarterback needs to be able to step up in a leadership role, and it's challenging to do that when you've got a very, I know the diva wide receiver term is out there, but you've got one that is high maintenance, that requires a lot of attention, and unfortunately the attention right now is negative. So this is one of the more concerning signings. I get the excitement, and you need to have that in that wide receiver room. You need that production because it's been a position of weakness. So they've got to get this figured out sooner rather than later, and hopefully Stefon Diggs can lay low, get healthy, and be the contributor that the Patriots fans think they can get.
They've been trying to get Drake May that number 1, link T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, and obviously Stefon Diggs, which has experience being that with Josh Allen in Buffalo. We'll see how healthy he is and if he's able to do that in New England, guys. All right, so if we get to the prognostications here, 7.5 wins is the projected win total at most sports books. Our guys at Sportsline have crunched the numbers. They think 6 wins. Here's the schedule, and I'm going to tee up Tyler first because when I found out how many wins he thought New England was going to get, I was literally flabbergasted. I was taken aback. So, Sully, how many wins are we talking about for this Patriots team this year?
Yeah, I think you all collectively spit out your Dunkin' Donuts because it was very much, it feels like a homer play for me right now. But I see this team with 11 wins. I think they're 11-6. And I don't even know how much of it is the New England Patriots being a better football team. You look at this schedule, it smells. It's not that good, particularly at home. We went into it coming into the segment, the 3rd easiest in terms of strength of schedule in the NFL. But I look at that home schedule, 9 games at home this season. The only game that I don't think you're going to be favored is later on in the year when you're facing the Buffalo Bills in Foxborough. Everything else, a home opener, Vegas. Later on in week 3 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now, that's Mason Rudolph as the quarterback. You have the Carolina Panthers. You have the Falcons, the Jets, the Giants. There's a lot of wins at home that I think they're going to be able to rack up. So if they win 7 or 8 games at home, you only really need a few other wins on the road for this team to get to over to that win total, that 11-6 that I've been circling in 2 of those road games at New Orleans, at Tennessee. Probably going to be favored in those games as well. So I kind of look at this schedule and say, boy, even if you are a mediocre team, as long as you're well coached, which I believe that they will be, you should be able to grind out some wins.
All right, here's Sully where I don't think you're too crazy because I was doing this exercise going through the schedule early and started to chalk up a lot of wins, including a 4-game winning streak there on, games at the Saints, at the Titans, coming home against the Browns and Falcons. So I had them at 8 wins going into the final month of the season, but that's when it gets real all of a sudden. But here's where I don't think it's too crazy on your part. Like, I've seen, and I know some people think momentum is a real thing, but I do think belief and all of a sudden culture building can be, if they do get to that bye and they get healthy and they're at 8 wins potentially, or even 7 wins, I could see them maybe catching one of those teams, the Bills and Ravens, and then who knows, the Jets, they could be in disarray. I had them losing that one on the road. And the Dolphins do have to travel up there to New England, which isn't always been the kindest to the Dolphins, a warm weather team. So I don't think it's that crazy. I had them at 8-9, doubling their win total from last year. So I thought that was optimistic, but a late season collapse. But if they are able to capture that momentum and continue it in the back end, they could be one of the bigger upside surprises of this season.
I think it's hard to know because you don't know who this team is.
Well, just looking at Danny's...
It's hard to predict because we have no idea.
Just looking at Danny's bracket or his schedule, he had an 8-5 going into the bye, but then losing 4 straight. So
yeah,
8-5,
exactly.
You got to be feeling good, but then you finish 8-9, which is not what you want to do, right? But it does remind me of last year's Chargers team that had a win total of 8.5, but they also had a very favorable schedule, and they were able to parlay that into the postseason. But, I mean, I don't know, Amanda. What do you think?
It's one of those you're just going to kind of have to see how it goes along.
Yeah.
I don't have the schedule there, so I don't know, when kind of we're going to know who they are by what point in the season. Okay. But then, of course, you can make changes. Drake May got better as the season went along. We're going to have to see.
I did look up after learning of Tyler's choice that over 9.5 wins at FanDuel for the Patriots does pay out nearly 2-1.
I was about to say, you could get some good money on that, Tyler, if you're really believing in your Patriots.
Tyler, Danny, guys, certainly appreciate it. It'll be interesting to see what the Patriots do, what moves that they still have in store to be able to do that in-house and get to the 11 wins that Tyler predicts that they'll able to get. All right, CBS Sports HQ news, highlights, and scores. It's all here. And the best part is, folks, it's all free.